Our speaker tonight is April Lynch, who in fact is a former member of the Education Committee and contributed a great deal of wonderful work in layout and design and photography and other art stuff for our committee several years ago. But she's here tonight as a speaker on wildflowers and Backroads, which is a wonderful introduction to the spring season. And she and her husband Paul have developed an incredible wildflower garden in their yard in Sebastopol, which is really impressive. I've seen pictures and I was there when we were first starting, which was pretty cool. She's also quite an expert on oaks of Sonoma County and has done a number of talks, including one for the Laguna on oaks. But tonight it's going to be the love of her life, California wildflowers. And she started out as a little kid with her grandma and her mom learning about these things, and it's grown into a passion. So I'm just going to let you go. You have a degree in business, I remember, from Sonoma State.
Thank you, Virginia. I come here because I love to show my wildflower pictures to people. It's like they come out of the computer and I get to talk about that day, and I have recollections from certain days. So I hope you enjoy the flower pictures as much as I enjoy showing them to you. So as the virtually visiting today, not all of us have time to get in the car and go out and take a drive. As a matter of fact, the stars here, you couldn't cover this in 3 days, I think. So I've kind of like lumped everything together. What's a wildflower? Some friends were asking me, why didn't you just title that native flowering plants? I said, what's a wildflower? A curiosity to children, a message of love and romance to lovers, and to others, poetry. Wildflowers got there all on their own without any help from humans. Maybe a bobcat walked through and caught the seeds on his toes, or maybe a bird just dropped one in. At any rate, wildflowers are there doing just fine without any help from people, and the annuals, the delicate little annuals we see this time of the year, receive themselves very nicely. Once the plant is mature, the seeds drop on the ground or are scattered in other ways. And they're not covered. People ask me, April, how come my seeds aren't how come I'm not getting any flowers? It's because we don't cover our wildflower seeds. We leave them laying on the ground. The birds might get a few, but wildflowers produce so many seeds, there's enough for everybody. So we're going to start with the Sonoma Coast State Park, which is the Willow Creek Addition in Bridgehaven. This is a little park that just as you're crossing the bridge coming from Jenner going toward Bodega, this is just you might miss the turn. If you pass the restaurant there, just as you pass the restaurant, turn left on Willow Creek Addition, and there are so many nice monkey flowers growing there along the road in seeps. And if you look at these monkey flowers, you see the little red spots on their faces. Those are kind of like landing lights for the bees to come and fertilize the flowers. If you continue down this road and go a couple of miles, if you go too early in the year, you might get held up by the mud puddles. But at the end, there's a beautiful a campground there. And the trail goes up into the redwood trees and up to the highest peak there. So if you're in good shape, you can see the ocean from the very highest spot. So carry water with you and everything else that you need because there's nothing out there. It's very, very remote. I counted over 60 species of wildflowers when we went there. So it's a beautiful spot on this God's planet. Here are seaside daisies. They're a member of the sunflower family, as I'm sure you all recognize. The two kinds of flowers on all sunflowers are the sterile ray florets, which appear as the outer petals, and the inner disc florets, which produce the seed. These seaside daisies require little moisture once established in coastal garden areas, but some supplemental watering is required inland. Plant in sunny areas, and they are blooming from January through August. These Pacific stonecrop are drought tolerant, fleshy leaf perennial plant known as a succulent plant, which I'm sure you're aware. It has a wide range in California and can be seen on dry rocky slopes, cliffs, marine bluffs, road cuts, open forest, and so forth, blooming from April through July. They're very drought tolerant, as I said earlier, and often root-based plants that store water in their tissues to survive arid conditions. These plants have been poached quite a bit out at the ocean. So if you want some nice succulent plants, please go to a sale. This is also in the Sonoma Park system there. And this is the Cordon Trail. Take the lesser traveled hike along the Pacific coast right when nature begins to bloom. The Cordon Trail connects Wrights Beach in the south to Blind Beach in the north, which is about 4.6 miles round trip. While we were hiking up the trail from the ocean up to the top of the bluff, we had a surprise. I looked down, it was somewhat steep trail. Perhaps I wouldn't have recognized it, but there was a full set of mountain lion footprints here. And what I'm trying to say is if you need to be prepared if you're going to go out and be in wild places like this for how to deal with the mountain lion. And basically, don't give them a reason to come up and have an encounter with you. Has anyone here been to the Jenner Headlands Preserve? Lots of you. That's really beautiful, and there are so many different. There's Douglas fir forest, oak woodland, chaparral, and coastal prairie, where you can see wildflowers in bloom in a number of environments. So there's a steep climb that takes you up the 2,200-foot peak of Pole Mountain, or you can just do like Paul and me and hike to the Gene Schultz Wildflower Meadow. That's at 853 feet. So here we see the cute little dense flower owl's clover, the little owls peeking out of the pink bracts and then the hayfield tar field, which I love the smell that they make later on in the summertime. There's also gold fields there. These delicate flowers, butter and eggs and pink butter and eggs, are growing here at the Wildflower Meadow too. I often see these growing on the bluffs out at Bodega Head. And I would like to remind you, please stay on the trails. I see people walking through, and if they're not know any better, I saw people walking on the pink butter and eggs. I almost went and told them, hey, watch where you're stepping there. Butter and eggs are hemiparasitic plants, which means they rely on the nutrients that they get through their association with mycorrhizal fungus, And they can also do their own photosynthesis on their own. So they're really an interesting plant. Here's ethereal sphere. It's a perennial herb. It's easy to grow in your garden. And I was tempted to buy another plant. This flower is named for Ethereal, the mythical archangel of fate. For those of you with a good imagination, you can imagine Ethereal standing there with his sphere, the star-shaped flowers arising from long stems. These bloom late spring to early summer. They're a member of the lily family and they grow primarily in northern and central California. And here I've captured all the 4 colors that you will see them. From Jenner Headlands Preserve to the Cruz Rhododendron State Park, it's about a 20-mile drive, taking about 40 minutes. But you know, you never make it in 40 minutes if you're like me. I'll see something along the road and I'll go, wait, what was that? And Paul, my husband, is so patient. He pulls off and he lets me photograph whatever I want to see. These are the perennial herbs, the common trillium, blooming months of April through May. Trillium is named for the plant parts growing in threes, 3 petals, 3 sepals, and 3 egg-shaped leaves. Aren't they otherworldly? I just think they're so beautiful. And I recently read that they're pollinated by ants. And from the time that the seeds are pollinated, that the plant is pollinated, it takes 3 years before the first leaves emerge. So you have to have time and patience if you want to introduce this one in your garden. They bloom from April through May. So here is one of my favorites, the coast lily. These were growing along the road in a seep. As the name implies, maritimum means of or from the sea. These beautiful, rare, endemic lilies have 6 curled petals with purple spots in their throat. These are coastal bush lupin, and they're commonly seen in purple. They're arboreous translates to tree-like, so we have a tree-like lupin. This coast bush lupin is a shrub which grows along the coast of California down into Baja California. While I was reviewing my photos, I noticed up on the top right what looked like a piece of lint got on the lens, and that was very annoying that I should do that. So I looked at the 3 consecutive photos, and I realized the piece of lint was swimming south. So that was really an interesting day. I did discover that orcas can be found along the coast here, as along with other migrating whales. And this is a good time of the year to go out to Bodega Head and look for the migrating whales, incidentally. I'm sure everyone is familiar with the paintbrush. They have the greenish purple stems covered with hair. And along the road, we also saw a paintbrush, whitey eye, growing on coastal scrub, and they can be seen with green or red bracts. Initially, I thought those were the petals until I took a closer look, and those are actually not petals, they're bracts. And a close-up look is there are flowers. So these little insignificant flowers need a little bit of help to get the bees to come and visit. So that's why we have the beautiful bracts. This is really a fantastic road, the Fort Ross Road to Cazadero. Um, it's, takes about 12 and a half miles, taking 38 minutes by car. But you can't possibly do this whole road in 38 minutes without stopping and looking at what's along the way and maybe taking a picnic lunch here. We saw these ground iris growing in open to partly shaded slopes in oak and pine woodland there. And that's where we spread our blanket for our lunch. The Douglas iris are usually found within sight of the shore, but recently I looked up and I saw that they were growing all up there at Jack London Historic Park. So much for that stat. So here along the road were we went and counted between 9 and 12 waterfalls. And depending upon when you go, a good time to go is right after a series of really heavy rains. Would you like to hear the waterfall again? Growing there nearby, Western Trillium, the only trillium with a petiole between the leaves and the inflorescence, and the redwood sorrel, and red clintonia, also known as blue bead lily. These all grow in the redwood forest. I'm sure many of you have been to the Cruz Rhododendron State Reserve. And this is another place that you need to be prepared because there are no restroom facilities, there's no water, and there's a really bad road, which is just graded with a grader. And if you're lucky, the potholes will be filled at the time of your visit. There are also some nice hiking trails that wind through the forest. And there was a recent fire up there which helped open up the canopy. So there was a really good show of rhododendrons the last couple of years. We visit every year because it's kind of like a tradition with us. So here under the sign, the entry sign, we see California gold banner, Thermopsis california. Thermopsis in Greek is the Greek name for lupin. These are growing, as I said earlier, in a burn area and is scarification is required. So they do look like lupin, the flowers, but if you look very closely, you'll see leaves of 3, while the lupin has 5 to 8 palmate leaflets. So palmate means the leaves look like a palm of somebody's hand. California gold banner grow in disturbed places, particularly burned areas. Blue-eyed grass and yellow-eyed grass. A yellow-eyed grass is very widespread, but the blue-eyed grass is only found in California. And they are not grass, they are a member of the iris family. These iris are easy to propagate by seed or division. They do well in gardens. As a matter of fact, I have one that I introduced earlier this spring, and it already has 1 flower on it. I'm always so excited to see the fruits of my labor. And here's our Pacific rhododendron. The term rhododendron is translated to rose-colored tree, and so appropriate. The funnel-shaped flowers are seen in salmon pink and white, often with yellow or orange splotches on the lower petals. Stream banks, ocean bluffs, and moist wooded slopes are their favorite location. They're seen flowering from March to May, and they can grow from 20 to 25 feet. Also, if there's a nice Place to view them is Highway 20, just as you're coming into Fort Bragg from Willits. Lots of rhododendrons along the road there. This is a very unusual plant. It produces absolutely no chlorophyll, and so is this beautiful pink. These spotted coral root orchids grow in decomposing leaf litter of the shaded forest under the redwoods, tan oak, and rhododendrons. This plant cannot be propagated unless you have a real expert that gathers mycorrhizal from redwood forests specifically. This native perennial herb blooms from May through July, so you have time to get out there and see them. So the next stop on my tour is Armstrong Redwoods State National Reserve. This 805-acre park was purchased for $80,000 in 1917 and now preserves the magnificent Sequoia sempervirens. There's a number of special plants growing in this area, and one of my favorite is the Colusa orchid, also known as fairy slippers. Wouldn't you love to slip your feet into those? We went looking for these because I heard that they grew in the redwood forest, and I couldn't find them until I read that they only grow to 4 inches tall, and I was looking for something more like you'd see in the nursery, about 12 inches. So we started our search again. You'll see one leaf only, characteristic of some of the orchids. I've also seen these growing on Sweetwater Springs Road, which is another fantastic back road, and Monorio Redwoods Regional Park, which is a relatively new park. Chances are you will see this flower after you see the spotted leaves. Look at those very unusual heads. It's called fetid because its foul odor attracts flies to pollinate the blooms. I looked up, it does look like a snake's mouth, doesn't it? It's adder. An adder is a snake you find growing in European, and I'm sure the first explorers didn't think about the rattlesnake tongue. They thought of their native adders, and henceforth named it the California fetid adder's tongue. They flower from February through March, so if you haven't been out there to spot them, you're too late. These lilies can be seen growing along creeks. One of my favorites, I will wade through poison oak, muddy water, blackberry brambles, and reflex petals of this endemic lily reveal magenta or orange anthers and reddish brown pollen. Growing very tall, up to 9 feet, they can have up to 35 flowers per stem. And here you can clearly see the leaves which are growing in whorls along the stem. What could be more appropriate than to show you the rare and endemic Pitkin March lily? I was lucky enough to go and meet somebody who took me for a special tour to photograph these lilies. Aren't they special? They only grow in 3 or 4 locations in Sonoma County and nowhere else in the world. What makes these different from the previous slide? Here, let's go back one more time and look at the flowers on the leopard lily. Look at the size of the anthers. See here? Now look at the pitkin lily. Look at the size of the anthers here. So that's one of the differentiating features of this plant that gives it a subspecies, pitkinensis. Farewell to spring. Here comes the Clarkia. And these red ribbons are one of my favorite Clarkia. This is an annual herb and it's native and endemic to California. It's seen from San Francisco Bay Area almost to the Oregon border, and they bloom from April through July. These flowers are a delight to see in large swaths across forest, woodland, and coastal scrub. From the Latin meaning skillfully joined, neat, well made. Our next stop is Sugarloaf Ridge State Park in Kenwood. I'm sure you've all been there. It's a nice big park. And it's located in the Mayacamas Mountains north of Kenwood and straddles the boundary between Sonoma and Napa counties. It runs through gorge and canyon, across the meadow floor, beneath scenic rock outcroppings, and contains the headwaters of Sonoma Creek. These tiny golden fairy lanterns prefer a bit of shade. As they age, also, they can turn an orange color. Listen for the bells. The mission bells are known as Shaker lilies also, and they bloom from March through May. The leaves grow in whorls, as you can see here, so that tells us it's a lily. These flowers can grow up to 24 inches tall, and it's very easy to walk right past them on the trail because they're not really bright. They're sort of an orangish brownish color. But I think they're lovely. I love lilies. Here's the warrior's plume. A lot of people mistake the warrior's plume for the paintbrushes. Common to dry, brushy slopes, you might observe bands of warrior's plume beneath oak, madrone, and fir. They're also a hemiparasitic plant. They bloom from January through April. I've seen hummingbirds visit these plants. Everyone's familiar with the beautiful valley sky lupin, Lupinus nanus. Habitat and plant community dictate the plant structure and size. You will see them in colors of blue, pink, purple, white, or yellow. These lupin are one of over 130 species in California, practically a lupin for every environment. And here's the cardinal monkey flower. I looked for this monkey flower for years, and finally, one day we pulled off the road between Santa Rosa and St. Helena, the town of St. Helena, and we kind of tiptoed off the road and looked down in a recently burned area, and here the entire bank on both sides were just covered with these beautiful cardinal monkey flowers. And I love them so much that I've brought you a reading, well, some poetry. This book was written in 1934 by Leslie and Lillian Haskins. And I'm reading what Lillian wrote about the cardinal monkey flower. You will find the red monkey flower bordering mountain streams, its brilliant flowers and bright foliage mirrored in the quiet pools, or nodding in the breezes on tiny islands or low peninsulas amongst the splashing ripples. Here it makes a picture entrancing and unforgettable. Its companions, the leaping trout and the erratic water ousel, elusive mountain spirits like itself. Did someone ask what a water ousel is? It's a bird. It has webbed feet, so it's perfectly adept to diving for the little creatures that live in the water. I thought that reading fit perfectly with this photograph. Now, what I do is encourage people. Now, I know you native plant folks are already planting natives in their gardens, but it's my mission to go and tell people about Douglas Tallamy's work. Native, this is one of his books. I see you have it for sale in the back. Nature's Best Hope. And when he's encouraging people to participate in homegrown national park. I really like that. And a lot of people don't have the background or education. So when I give this presentation at libraries, things, people are very interested in it. And I hope to continue to encourage people to plant natives in their yard because they bring in the wildlife and even people. So this lovely garden is in my sister's backyard and it's bordering a sunny alley where who would have thought? But and here the California poppies are the highlight. Not everybody knows how to plant annual wildflowers, but here is a brief summary on how you do it. People come to me and say, how come my poppies didn't come up? You gave me some poppies, they didn't come up. Well, first of all, do you live in an area where poppies will grow? Do you have a sunny patch or a partially sunny patch? Secondly, did you prepare the bed? Wildflowers have trouble competing with the invasive weeds and plants and so we have to prepare the bed by, there's a couple of ways we could do it. We can mulch until everything is dead under the 3 to 4 inches of mulch, or we can water it heavily and then weed the patch where we want our flower bed. Sow the seeds in the fall just before the rainy weather so we can take advantage of the free water. Also, wildflowers like to get started there with their root system in the fall so that everybody's ready to go when springtime comes along. Another mistake that people do is they like to bury the seeds. They think they're planting pumpkins 1 inch under the ground, but do not bury the seeds. They'll do just fine. And in drought years, you can provide additional water to get them going. These are my favorite for container plants. Not everybody has a backyard. A lot of people just have an apartment. So I tell them, why don't you start some seeds in pots and enjoy them from your window or as you sit out on your deck. And here is Phyla, baby white eyes, 5-spot, baby black eye, which is a cultivar, I believe, and baby blue eyes. I provide irrigation from them and they spend almost all summer into the fall on my patio. I'm sure you're all familiar with our favorite local, the Sonoma Clarkia. These are so easy to propagate by seed. You don't need a greenhouse. I initially started some by seed in the greenhouse and I planted them in pots for my deck. That year, I gathered the seeds and I spread them on the hillside in the back amongst the creek rocks, the grasses, and the poppies. Once the deer come through and browse a little bit, they find out the Clarkia is not as yummy as they look, and they will put back flower heads again for your enjoyment. Here's one way to collect your flower seeds to share with your friends. You can put a bag over it. This is a jewelry bag. It's a lot prettier than a brown bag with a piece of twine wrapped around it. But that's what I do. I bag them up, I cut them off, and I hang them. First I let the seeds ripen on the plant, and then I hang them upside down until I can get around to collecting the seeds and put them in paper envelopes and keep them in a cool, dark place till you're ready to plant them in the fall. So now let's look about how to garden with perennials. Perennial plants can be short-lived, only a few years, or long-lived. Perennials invest more resources than annuals into roots, crowns, and other structures that allow them to live from one year to the next. They often have a competitive advantage because they can commence their growth and leaf out earlier in the growing season and grow taller than annuals. In doing so, they can better compete for space and collect more light. Here's how easy it is to propagate woody perennials from your garden. This cutting right here is a cutting that was given to me. It's a red bush monkey flower. And to prepare the cutting, you trim back on the top 3 nodes, you trim back the leaves, and the bottom 3 nodes or more, if you have a deep enough pot. We peel off the leaves or cut them off. And we dip them into rooting hormone, or there's also a cloning gel that's available at certain shops that's a little bit easier to work with than the powder. And you make a hole first, big enough to slip the cutting in so that the hormone doesn't come off the top of the soil line. So insert it into your growing medium. I use things mixed with sand, whatever I have handy, works just fine. And I keep them moist until established. You'll start to see the growth at the tip of the plant. And if you want, you can tug on them a little bit to see if they're rooted. So remember this cutting. And here's this beautiful monkey flower 3 years later. And I have taken so many cuttings from this plant and shared with people. I just take them in, flower and all, and show people how to make the cuttings. And these plants must be growing all over Sonoma County. That makes me so happy. Have you heard this one? In California, only about 25% of its original pristine vegetation remains. That's a quote by Dr. John Bondo, Executive Director, California Native Plant Society, Sacramento, California. That's sobering, isn't it? Yeah, now we're cheating. Okay, so this is what our place looked like when we first moved in. And you can see the apple orchard in the back here on the right. And on the lower left picture, there's one remaining apple tree left there. And this entire area was, I believe, was originally an oak woodland or a grassland. So we looked around to see what would grow nicely out there before we started gathering plants and propagating them. There was a beautiful wedding gazebo the previous owner many years back built for his son's wedding. And then, of course, you can see the old barn, which was like leaning when we first got there. So now I get to show you, there it is, finally. There's our wedding gazebo, which was used for our son's wedding last year. And on the hillside there, we see the Matilia poppies. The growing season for these poppies can be extended by carefully sprinkling them with some water. And while you do that, sit out there and just inhale the beautiful perfume from those fried egg flowers, as people fondly call them. Then we have just poppies and Shasta daisies growing here and there, and we have some penstemon. These are the resources I know the genus name. Also, we can search once we find we can search by area if you want to see what all is growing in one particular area. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this website, but it's very useful and it's very user friendly. Cowscapes, I'm sure you're all aware of what's a cowscapes. And I always tell people, this is where you go when you're choosing plants to see if they're appropriate for your yard and the cultivation requirements. Then Dave's Garden will help you with your uh, nomenclature. Also, I'm referencing our little book, Wildflowers, that can be gotten from Barnes and Noble online, or perhaps at your book sale next time. Maybe there'll be one. I also use Jepson Herbarium quite a bit with the University of California, Berkeley. They're very technical, but they are spot on. They don't make mistakes. They're constantly upgrading their work. And, you know, if you don't mind looking up vocabulary words as you go, they use very succinct adverbs and adjectives to describe their plants. Then, of course, there's the USDA plants database. So if you're going to go visit another state, you can look and see what's growing in another state. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you for being a good audience. I hope you enjoy my flowers as much as I enjoy showing them to you.
Boy, before and after pictures are really cool.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun and it's inspiring to people. That took 10 years. Yeah, we also have not shown a wildflower meadow. And we have the classic lupin and poppy combination growing amongst the California fuchsia and whatever else we can get to drop in there. We really enjoy it. And it's hard to keep the dogs from running through it.
They spread the seeds.
The dogs try this, yes, they pick them up between their toes and they move them around to the other part of the yard.
Quail?
We have quail. We have quail, bobcats, mountain lions, badgers, foxes. Then we have lots of newts and salamanders and lizards. And I stepped on a snake last year. Unfortunately, he was okay. He was okay, Betty. And we have lots of birds. We have a great gray heron that comes and eats our gophers for them. Very fun to watch them, you know, toss it up and gulp it down. Well, maybe that's not for everybody, but. And we have some red-tailed hawks that are in the redwood tree on the other side. So we have butterflies that we didn't see when we first started living there. So yeah, we planted some milkweed out there. Plant the milkweed away from everything because they get that horrible yellow aphid. And so you can invite all kinds of butterflies. I used to collect butterflies as a kid. That was one of my hobbies. I don't kill butterflies anymore. I photograph them. So thank you for asking me the leading question, Virginia.
That was, I mean, I saw your yard when you were just starting. It's just marvelous.
Well, I'll have you come back when the new monkey flower section gets grown, and I collected as many monkey flower colors and cultivars as I could find. And I arranged them in a big area. It'll be fun to watch that come in. Yes,
Do you have a water source, a natural water source for your garden?
we actually have a windmill that we can pump water from, or we have a regular well that provides water for our house, and it's a very it provides copious amounts of water. It's over 120 feet deep, and it's very nice, clean, delicious water. We're so lucky to have it.
You mentioned a hillside. Is there a creek or anything, or is it just water that runs off?
It's water that all the water from everything up to the top of Burnside Road comes through our yard. So we provided drainage. So we use creek rocks to help with the drainage issues in our yard. So we're still working on that. We're putting in French drains and everything, you know, with the good, sometimes can come some bad, but we're dealing with it.
Stay moist or through the spring, or do you have to renew plantings have to water it, or does it stay moist enough?
Well, we water some things that are not native. And then we judiciously water the natives. After the natives are established, they do nicely without any water at all. We have blue blossom ceanosus, and we have two cultivars of coffeeberry, and they haven't required any water. So, it depends. We just try to keep things with similar water uses on the same line. So for instance, our fruit trees are all on one irrigation line. So does that answer your
Yeah, I
question?
just, from the Burnside Road runoff, there's not enough to water through the year.
Oh, no, we don't get a creek or drainage. But underneath the house stays pretty moist for many months. But I think that because we live over there off of Bloomfield Road and our proximity to the ocean, perhaps our wildflowers last longer than ones that are inland.
I have one other question. Do you have any turkeys that, displacing the quail or?
They seem to get along okay. We had turkeys in the backyard today. It was reported a bobcat was after the turkeys this afternoon.
They're not displacing the quail, they're coexisting.
We still have, yeah, they're coexisting. They don't like to come up too close. They stay further away.
How big a piece of property is it?
Pardon me?
How big a piece of property?
Well, our place is 1 1/8 acre, which is more than enough, especially if you consider you have to mow some of it. My husband and his evil lawnmower, I planted something there. But anyway, we have a nice mowed area in the back, which will never have meadow. Yeah.
Do you have any red bud? Did you put red bud in?
Oh, yes, we have a red bud. A friend of mine from Lake County traded red buds for some other plants that I propagated, snowdrops. They only grow in Lake County. So I started some in the refrigerator. But she traded me a red bud, and we've had it in a pot for 2 years. This is the third year. It's in the ground. It's beautifully shaped, and it's happy as a clam.
They have such beautiful flowers.
They do. They're very pretty. I'm looking forward. I don't know if it's going to bloom the first year or not, but we'll find out. Yes.
A plant care question. I have blue-eyed grass in my yard that should grow wild, very happy. And so I thought it would be very cool to have some yellow-eyed grass. And I put it out there and it just croaked. Do they need different areas to grow, or does it just have the kiss of death?
Different water.
They need more water.
grow in yellow with more water.
Okay.
The photograph that you saw in my presentation, it was growing along the road in like seep monkey flowers or the coast lilies. They like a lot of water.
I'd have to put it under our house.
But the blue-eyed grass, they do very nicely in the backyard, and I splash it once in a while because it's still becoming established. But it's doing nicely. Supposedly hogs like to eat them. I don't know. Does that mean deer like them? We haven't seen any deer come through and nibble yet, so. A lot of times with native plants, there's reason why the deer don't like them. They're either prickly or they don't taste good or stinky. So I don't mind. Yes?
Deal with the, if we're doing some irrigation, all the wild oats and the weeds,
We mulch.
Okay.
We go and we buy, we have a how many cubic foot dump trailer? 4 cubic foot dump trailer, and we buy mulch by the trailer load. And just throw a little bit more on. That's how we deal with the weeds. And also, he's very good with the weed whacker. Yeah,
Let's go.
there's a lot of weeds growing around, a lot of invasive weeds.
Yeah.
And that's something we gardeners are always dealing with.
And some of them are edible.